A client once celebrated generating 200 leads from a new campaign, and 2 months after that, not a single one had converted to revenue. Most businesses, surprisingly enough, stop measuring the moment they bring in the leads, but they're really missing the metrics that impact revenue this way. Today, I'll share my full funnel measurement framework that connects marketing activities to real business outcomes. My name is Jasper, I'm a certified HubSpot consultant, and welcome back to 5 Minute Friday. The first thing I want to talk about is the lead count trap. So I think lead count alone often is quite misleading. Not all leads are created equal, and volume metrics really incentivize quantity over quality, which at the end of the day kind of made sense for a very long time. But with the tools that we have these days, like for example HubSpot, where we can really track back every dollar in revenue to the first campaign that a person really saw and everything that they saw in between, this really doesn't make any sense anymore. And lead count is becoming just another vanity metric without any conversion context. So some common pitfalls that I see here are we're celebrating high numbers from low quality sources. We're not differentiating between different lead types. And we also see a disconnect between marketing and sales metrics. The key point here is that 100 quality leads outperform 1,000 low quality ones any day. And this brings me to my full funnel framework. Campaign effectiveness really requires tracking across the full funnel. This means we have the leads initially coming in. We don't really know a lot about them at that point. Then they move into marketing qualified leads as we see them taking more actions and more meaningful actions. They get handed over to sales, who decides if they're a sales qualified lead. And then of course the opportunity gets created, and eventually we get a closed won customer and revenue is generated. This full trajectory, this gives us the full picture of how a campaign is really performing. And it's very important that we track the conversion rates between each of these stages, because we want to identify where potential breakdowns happen. For example, when we have a Google search ads campaign with full funnel tracking, we can really see which campaign brings in the most revenue, which, by the way, is not always the same thing as the campaign that brings in the most leads. I've seen plenty of campaigns bringing in hundreds of leads each quarter without converting a single one of them, or maybe just one of them. But if you're not tracking these metrics and you're just looking at that specific channel holistically, and you're like, well, Google Ads is bringing in this many customers each quarter, but certain campaigns are not generating any customers at all. If we're missing that revenue data for these specific campaigns, we can't really make the right decisions. Obviously, you have to keep in mind the full picture. As I explained in another video, which I will link right up here, sometimes these channels influence each other. So for example, if you have a branded search campaign, this is usually influenced by other display campaigns or branding campaigns on social media as well, for example. So we do need to keep those things in mind, but we definitely want to have that full funnel. And having this full funnel and giving you this visibility in the entire customer journey really allows you to understand true campaign effectiveness. The next point I want to talk about is how we can use lead scoring as a predictive KPI. Lead scoring is something that we can easily build out in HubSpot if you're using a Marketing Hub Professional or higher, and it allows us to get early indications of how certain contacts will perform. So the lead score, if set up correctly, should really correlate with the likelihood that a contact has to convert into a paying customer. It provides us with feedback before the sales cycle really completes, and it helps us prioritize marketing efforts. A simple lead scoring setup in HubSpot could be that we look at behavioral signals like, for example, page visits or content downloads, and also like which types of content downloads. And of course for the pages, same thing, like there are high value pages and there are lower value pages, so it's important to differentiate between those. We can also look at a demographic fit, as well as certain engagement patterns with for example, marketing emails that we send out. Then once you have your lead score system set up, it's important to just do a test and pick about like 10 different leads with different lead scores and really go through their timeline in detail, because this will allow you to see if the lead score actually makes sense, if you see their specific behavior. It will give you a better idea if your lead score needs any tweaking. And once we have this all set up, one example use case here would be to have a report that shows you the average lead score for each of your paid search campaigns, for example, your Google Ads campaigns. It's a report that we use quite often, and it allows us to have an early indicator of how a campaign is performing. So for example, if the sales cycle takes, let's say, 3 months, we don't have to wait those 3 months until we can see how a campaign is performing. After just a couple of weeks, we will already see the average lead score, and we will see how it compares to our other campaigns. If this new campaign brings in a bunch of leads, but we see the lead score is like 1/3 of what an other campaign is, well, then we know that we're not really on the right track here, and we want to revisit that specific campaign and try something new. At the end of the day, you really want to set up your HubSpot environment, if you're using HubSpot, to show you the full picture. You want to get that full journey that your contacts go through, and you want to have your early indicators of how certain campaigns are performing. So I want to leave you with a challenge, and that is to audit your current campaigns and specifically the campaign measurement and see if you are really tracking beyond lead generation. Are you linking those revenue numbers to those clicks on your campaigns? Then pick one of your recent campaigns and trace those leads through your full funnel to see the actual impact of that campaign. I'm sure that you'll get some really interesting insights here, and I would love for you to share these in the comments. What is your most valuable insight that you got out of doing this quick exercise? Leave it in the comments. I'll see you next Friday. Bye.